There are a number of avenues that began even before I started my career. I suppose my dad had Alzheimer's when I was small, and I was refused to allow to assist him with his lunch. So I thought that was quite strange. There wasn't staff available to help him, yet I wasn't permitted to help him. I couldn't understand why older people were treated in particular ways. And then I trained as a nurse, and when I trained as a nurse I subsequently worked in long-term care of older people, where now I look back and I say the system of care was completely abusive. You know, everything was task orientated. Then I trained to be a public health nurse out in the community, and in Ireland at that time the Child Care Act was being signed in when I just qualified as a public health nurse, and I couldn't understand why I was going into houses where there was a huge response system to children who were being abused at various levels, and I was going into houses where older people were. I went into one house, for example, where an older person was put out to live in the garden shed, and the system response was, well, you know, do what you can and make sure your notes are written up. And I couldn't understand why we're treating people differently, why there's a huge response system in one area and not in another area. So I went on and I did my PhD in looking at community nurses in Ireland and looking at their responses to elder abuse cases using discourse analysis. And through that, what I found was that there was really a very ageist perspective. All of the interviewees spoke of dependencies about older people, and they might have, in two of the people initially talked about older people are valued, but then they slipped in to dependencies. And one of the methods I used was discursive psychology, which looks at the accountability of the person and their stake in what they say and how they respond to particular questions and how they orientate their answers. And I used Foucauldian analysis, two different forms of analysis. So that really led me to believe that even though people say that, you know, they treat older people the same, what they actually think and how they construct their ideas shows that there was an ageist approach. And even in reviewing cases, people would have come across, first of all, they wouldn't have recognised them as a case, so I would have to say, have you ever come across? And then they would say, oh yeah, lots of times, and that they would be typically abuse cases. So I was quite concerned that even within the service of healthcare in Ireland, we weren't being responsive. And around the same time, the Irish policy document came out in 2002, Protecting Our Future, and this recommended a number of changes, particularly the establishment of dedicated elder abuse officers in Ireland, but they weren't set up until 2007, May, and the establishment of the National Centre for Protecting Older People, which subsequently the school I was working in when I got a role as a lecturer. So that has really extended my particular interest in the whole area of elder abuse. And also, I suppose with anything to do with research, the more you find out, the more you realise the gaps are in the system.